G'day everybody, Daniel here from GI Energy. We're here with Matthew Williams, our General Manager and resident battery expert. We've come across a new product that came out about a year ago called Sigenergy, something that's creating quite a buzz in the industry. Matt, do you want to give us a bit of an introduction to Sig?
Yeah, sure. So I first saw this product about a year ago now at the Smart Energy Conference in Sydney. They had a obviously pretty impressive stand, as a lot of products tend to do when they come out. And I saw it again at Intersolar in Munich in June, and spent quite a bit of time obviously just talking to Will, who's the MD in Australia, about the product. Everything about it just seemed incredible, and I guess like anything, we like to give it a little bit of time just to bed into the industry. There's obviously quite a lot of installers that jump at a new product maybe without knowing some of the teething issues or some of the other things that can happen, and feedback from other installers in the industry that we've known for many years, that we respect. Everyone's in complete unison that this product really is an absolute game changer for the industry. So we've installed a couple of SIGs now, and everything from the feedback from our guys in the office here, the installers, the clients that have actually installed the system at home, and their feedback from using the app and just how it's working for them. I've never known anyone have this sort of buzz in the industry, as you said before, probably since the Powerwall first got released about 2016, which is about when we started installing batteries. So there's been a huge level of excitement for us to really offer a product that ticks every single box that you could possibly wanting to do, really.
Wow, no pressure, Sig. But no, I agree. There's a lot of good stuff here that we're going to try and dig into it all. Matt knows more about Sigenergy than me, so you're going to educate me a bit here as well, and hopefully there'll be some useful information for anybody listening. The first thing that I get asked about a lot when I'm talking to customers about batteries is safety. That's been a big concern for people. So tell us a bit about Sigenergy and how they're dealing with that component.
Yeah, it's a huge question that we get asked all the time. Obviously, appropriately so. It's a pretty big electrical upgrade to your home, and obviously putting a battery in your garage or on the wall or somewhere else. So the Sigenergy has five layers of safety built in. So there's 7 temperature sensors per module. So the system's built up of a number of modules depending on the amount of storage that you have. So there's a fire extinguisher built into there. There's a temperature sensor that's gauging obviously the temperature of the cells. That's something that's tracked by AI, another feature we'll come on to. You can track the temperature of the modules through the app as well. So if there was ever obviously a thermal incident, gas, anything else going on with the system, that layer of safety, having the fire extinguisher, obviously having something to record the temperature, the gas and everything else in there, nothing can ever happen, and it's contained and dealt with. So in terms of the safety in comparison to other products on the market, there's nothing else at this level.
Yeah, it's very impressive. It's almost futuristic, isn't it, when you first hear it? It took me a while to get my head around that, but it's a great feature. When I put a battery in my house a few years ago, one of the things that we were very conscious of was where it was going to go and the size of the battery and where we were going to put it. So how does this one compare in terms of size if you're looking at other batteries like a Tesla or a BYD or a Sungrow or any of those other popular brands on the market?
Yeah, so it's a scalable battery. So you have the inverter and controller and then the battery modules. So we did an installation last week with 16 kilowatt hours of storage with the 3-phase 10 kilowatt inverter controller, which is about my waist height, which for anyone watching, I'm a pretty tall bloke.
So sitting around 5'4", 5'5".
So that was about 800 mil high. We floor mounted that battery because very likely that client will actually install further modules as they are looking to add other appliances into their home. So with 2 modules and the controller, it can be wall mounted. Once you exceed 2 modules, it has to then be floor mounted. So really important obviously to choose the right location, ensure the cabling is long enough, and just obviously your future requirements taken into account when you're discussing obviously the system sizing. So you could have 48 kilowatt hours of storage on one inverter with Sigenergy, which is 6 8 kilowatt hour modules. That would roughly be a touch over me, or about 6 feet high. Can be installed in the garage, can be installed outside. It's IP66 rated. So again, market leading in terms of the rating there. It's 260 deep, so pretty slim. So in line with other products on the market. And in terms of location, sort of something I didn't even pick up on until recently is there's external lights on the unit. So you've got obviously the operating light that you'd have on a standard inverter or a battery, but it'll actually show you the state of charge. So there'll actually be a level on the height of the battery relevant to what the state of charge is. So if it's 50% full, there's a light that's showing half the height of the battery, 50% of the battery. If it's charging, it's showing you the way that the power is obviously filling up. If it's discharging, it's coming down. And really importantly, if there was ever an issue with the system, there's a large red light on the unit itself. So if you're in your garage or you're outside and you don't check your app too frequently because the system's just doing what you want it to do, you'd actually see that there's a fault there. It would already be discovered anyway through the app, through the AI integration. But just a huge thing for a customer to know that if there was obviously ever a problem, there's a big symbol to show you that something obviously needs to be resolved.
That is quite cool.
It's cool.
Just thinking of, again, my battery at home, pull into the driveway, it would be quite nice to just glance over and see what the battery state of charge is.
Yeah.
Obviously having that red indicator light there would be good if it hadn't been discovered for some reason, but that is quite a cool feature.
I think so. I'm pretty nerdy with my battery. I look at it pretty frequently.
Yeah.
But yeah, for not everybody obviously is paying the same amount of attention to their state of charge or whatever else. So
no. I was quite amazed by the size. Actually, now you mentioned the battery that we installed the other day, the one that you referred to a second ago, was really quite small.
Yeah.
We'll put a picture of it up on this video, but if you compare it to, I have a Tesla Powerwall at home, it's significantly larger for less storage, which was very surprising. So if you're conscious of space, that's probably quite a big unique selling point as well.
Yeah, and then look, there's obviously guidelines with where batteries can go on the house in relation to distance to other plants, other utilities that you have. Obviously there's schemes, subsidies in place in certain states that obviously add future other barriers potentially to location. So having a sleek battery, obviously the ability to wall or floor mount it potentially as well, depending on your requirements for the amount of storage. It's there's always going to be somewhere we can find to put this in a realistic place.
One of the other things that we talk about a lot with batteries, and a lot of customers ask me when I'm talking to them early on in the conversation, is whether it's an AC or a DC coupled battery.
Yep.
Can you just explain briefly what that means,
Yep.
and then how Sig is dealing with that? Because it sounds like it can do both.
Yeah, so the Sigenergy unit can do AC coupled, DC coupled, single phase, three phase, on grid and off grid. So AC coupled is where, let's say you have a third party inverter that's already installed on the property, as obviously so many people do in Australia now. So they might have a 5-year-old 6.6 kilowatt system with a 5 kilowatt inverter. We could then AC couple the Sigenergy system with the inverter controller and the amount of modules required to that system, so that the excess energy generated from your existing solar array fills up the Sigenergy battery. You could also, in that instance, if you still have some roof space, add some additional panels into the DC side of the inverter. So then you've got your existing panels filling it up, plus you might add another 10 panels with your roof space. That'll obviously just ensure that we're filling that battery as frequently as possible if it's winter, bad weather, any other sort of variable that you have. And obviously that will allow your system to work in a blackout as well. So DC coupled is generally what we do for a brand new installation. So you'd have your inverter and your modules, as with any other battery, and then your PV array. So if you have a 13 kilowatt panel array, DC straight into the inverter, straight into the battery. So all that power that you're generating is either being consumed in your home for your home's load, your fridge, your lights, and whatever you've got running. The surplus is then filling up the battery. Once the battery's full, any excess at that point would be returned to the grid. And obviously then come the end of the day, or obviously if it's bad weather, you can then use your battery and obviously pull power and discharge the battery to obviously cover your load that's required. And it works on single and three phase. Probably won't go into on and off grid too much. It's obviously a little bit more niche, but the unit can be used off grid. You can even incorporate a generator into the system as well. So just really exciting, obviously, the flexibility that this product offers.
So essentially it can be used for a retrofit. If I've already got a solar system installed, I now want to add a battery and potentially some more panels, as you said, we can do that. Or if it's a new install, it works that way well as well.
Yeah.
You also mentioned backup power there if there's a power cut. So that's something that's important to a lot of people, particularly in a lot of areas now. We're experiencing power cuts with the system just being overloaded, people coming home with EVs and turning air cons on at the same time. We're getting a lot of power cuts in the summer months, as well as some storms coming through and potentially power cuts there.
Yeah.
So that's becoming more and more important as each year passes and as the grid struggles more and more. So Sigenergy have got a solution for that. Can you talk us through the backup?
Yeah, so with the Sigenergy installation, you can install the Sigen gateway. So then the gateway is what provides backup for your home. So that is instantaneous backup on single or three phase. So even if you've got a three phase home with unbalanced loads, so maybe one of the phases in your home is slightly overloaded with air cons or whatever else that you may have in the home. So let's say the power cuts at the time of filming this video, it's around midday. If the power cuts right now, your lights wouldn't flicker, the TV wouldn't turn off, nothing would happen. So in as far as you're aware, nothing's changed. The way that you'd know that you're in backup mode is you get a notification through the app. So it would say that backup has been initiated, and then obviously that way you could be a bit more cautious with your power usage. If it's a prolonged blackout, so if there's been obviously a damage to power lines in the area, or there's a big storm coming, and again this comes back to the AI that's built in. So it would actually say there's a likelihood that a power outage may be coming, maybe obviously imminent, and then obviously your backup is all taken care of. So you can potentially run your aircon. If you really wanted to do other things in backup mode and you know that it's probably not going to last too long, you can essentially operate as long as you need to, if you've got the obviously desired amount of storage to do so. And the discharge amount is 50% of each module. So if you've got 16 kilowatt hours of storage, your discharge is up to 8 kilowatts. If you've got an 8 kilowatt or 10 kilowatt inverter, so the only thing you're capped by then would be the inverter rated output. So 8 kilowatt discharge it's a lot of power. So if you're in backup mode, well and truly keep your fridge going, keep your beers cold, keep the TV on, keep the lights on, and your neighbours might be coming around to wonder what's going on.
One of the things that I learned after I installed my battery was that I wasn't able to force charge. So when my power cut, I had X amount of power in my battery, and once that had been depleted, even if the sun was shining again and the power hadn't come back on, I couldn't recharge my battery with my panels. I had to wait for the power to come back on. So I only had one go at using the battery. Can Sig do that differently?
Yes, this is a little bit of a misconception I think a lot of people have with batteries. They're not all created equally, and for your situation, obviously knowing it well, you have three-phase power, but a single-phase battery. So with Sigenergy, it can blackstart. So that's what you're referring to there. If you completely deplete your battery and the power outage is still ongoing, when the sun comes back up the next day to start generating power again, with Sigenergy, it can start doing that. Start powering the home, start filling up the battery, and then just sort of rinse and repeat each day. If you've got a prolonged outage that we obviously experience with some clients, maybe more rurally on an acreage property, they could go weeks at a time with a Sigenergy unit on three-phase and still have that occurring. So you can force charge the system the next day, which is black starting the system. So it's a really important question that I talk to the guys in the office here about, that if we have a client looking at a battery, what do they want that battery to do? Because they genuinely aren't equal, and it's very easy to say, oh, this does backup, this does this, this does this. I haven't found anything else that does true three-phase uninterrupted with black starting like the Sigenergy does.
Very important to know. Even with single-phase homes, some of them won't force charge, so some of them you won't get charge into your battery when the sun comes back up, and others you will. So it's something to keep in mind just generally for batteries. Another thing I wanted to talk to you about, obviously a lot more people are buying electric vehicles now, and people are buying EV chargers, and a lot of people don't realise what that actually means in terms of how quickly they can charge their vehicle, and how it can be quite difficult to charge your vehicle with the amount of power you have available to you in your home. So Sigenergy have an EV charger built in. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so Sig are the first to actually integrate the potential for a DC charger. So you can put in a DC charger at 25 kilowatts on three-phase, 12.5 on single-phase. So it essentially just adds on like another battery module onto the stack. So again, nobody else has done this on the market. So if you want to be able to charge your car a little bit quicker, you've got a very large solar array, maybe with a 10-15 kilowatt inverter, you can actually DC fast charge your car directly from solar, or potentially a mix of your solar, your battery, and the grid if you wanted to pull a little bit. if you maybe need to go for a long drive somewhere. So the integration of that DC charger is a complete game changer. You can also add in an AC charger, like a lot of other competitors, so obviously a slightly more cost-effective option if you're happy to charge at 7 kilowatts on single phase, which a lot of people are, depending on obviously their situation. But I think the DC charger really has been one of the main features here. That's also ready for vehicle to grid, vehicle to home, which may be a little bit of a new concept to some people, but this is something that is obviously going to be here pretty imminently. Sigenergy is the only product that can do this right now on the market. So you're future-proofing your home for whatever is going to change, from the distributor of the grid, obviously where you're located, potential purchase of an EV. It's pretty good.
What that really basically means, to put it in very simple terms, is if you're buying an electric vehicle, you want to charge it quickly, a faster way to charge is with a DC charger.
Correct.
Which is more expensive to buy, but will charge your vehicle quicker. An AC charger, a bit cheaper to buy, will do it more slowly. Sigenergy, you can essentially do both, but the DC charger is the impressive factor here.
Yeah.
So you have one of those and it will charge your car quicker. The other point there is that you can now start to, in the future, once the networks and the cars catch up, you'll be able to actually use your electric vehicle battery to run your home. So you'll be able to drive into your driveway, utilize the Sigenergy technology to use the battery in your car to get you through the peak hours of the day, and then obviously charge your car up potentially overnight when it's very cheap to do so. So that's something, again, that you don't usually get with you don't get with any other battery, and may not be something that you'd use right away, but if you're looking to be in the home for a while, and you're looking for an EV, you could have a 60, 70 kilowatt hour battery in a car that you could then use in your home, which is means you might not need to buy a bigger home storage system. You may need fewer panels on your roof, but ultimately you'd be getting a sizable battery to contribute towards your overall 24-hour load at home.
The other thing I guess that comes onto there is utilising your battery as a virtual power plant or a VPP.
Yes.
And what you're talking about there is, if I've got a 78 kilowatt hour electric car, I could then potentially fully charge my car in 3 hours from the DC charger on the system. And then if I utilise a VPP like Amber, Smart Shift or something like that, potentially sell that power back to the grid and create a bit of a residual income from the system. So you can integrate the Sigenergy system with Amber, with a few other retailers that offer a VPP. I have a client that's been doing that for a couple of months now, and he's got 13 kilowatt hours, so quite a modest amount of storage that we tend to see. The average feed-in rate that he's been getting is $1.65 a kilowatt hour, so he reserves enough for what he wants every evening, and then potentially if he wants to sell 5 kilowatt hours to the grid, he knows that he can dump that power into the grid and actually earn an income from doing so. So what I generally try and get across to my clients is, let's look at how we can create this system for you to be as self-sufficient as you aim to be, which is most likely the goal. And then maybe a month or two after having the system installed, look at the monitoring together, and then really delve into how we can supplement this using a retailer like Amber. There's obviously other ones available, but that's what I've done with quite a few people before to actually generate potentially a couple $100 a month in some instances, where you might get in the summer when there's more storms, more instability in the network. This is, again, you can use this to do whatever you want it to do in your home.
You really are future-proofing your solar system,
Yeah.
aren't you? So you can utilise all these things we're talking about, and we can go into more detail about each of those in different videos. A bit of a rabbit hole there with the bi-directional charging, and essentially it's the future of how you're going to manage your energy. Is putting a solar system on your roof is great. Obviously we can't rely on feed-in tariffs as much anymore because they're quite low. So thinking about all these other things that we're talking about in this video and using technology like Sigenergy to make sure that you're maximising the benefit from all of them is really how you're going to get to $0 power bill, 0 carbon emissions in your home from electricity, and ultimately be as sustainable as you can be. So we're very excited about it. The management team behind Sigenergy is very impressive. I remember looking through the way that the company was founded and the history of getting off the ground, and there's some very impressive people involved, and they're backing their product very well, and I think they have quite good warranties as well to support that.
Yeah, so the warranty on the battery is 10 years, so as you'd expect from a quality product, that's the benchmark really for the industry now. So when you're designing a system, you obviously want to make sure that we're backed as well. That's obviously a liability for every system that we put in. So 10-year warranty on the system. The batteries are modular as well. So each module is installed, and it's a parallel unit. So let's say you use the 16 kilowatt hour, that's generally our go-to for most people. If you come back in 5 years to add another module, because each module is installed in parallel, the new module isn't dragged down to the lowest denominator of what's installed. So other batteries are installed in series. So if you had a battery that's at 90% health of its original capacity, and you put a new 100% health battery in, with some other products that's dragged down to the lowest point immediately. Because the SIG's done in parallel, you could have a system that's operating 15 years from now, 70%, 60% of the original health. The new module at 100 works at 100%. So the way they've done the warranty and everything else gives us a lot of faith that they're going to be here for the long term, and obviously providing a really good product.
There's another really good consideration there.
Yeah.
The way that we work here at GI Energy is we try and design systems specifically for people's needs, and we don't have a big warehouse here full of Sigenergy products, so we're trying to be as non-biased as we can, and we don't want to push this hard on anybody. Just trying to highlight all the pros there. Are there any cons, Matt, that we need to consider, and who is this product maybe not for?
Yeah, I've been struggling to find one for a while.
Yeah,
I was trying to find one when obviously a lot of friends of ours in the industry have been raving about this, and you always look, sadly as a human, for what the downside may be. Again, just to give it a little bit of reflection, I guess if you're able to use your power really well in your home, you can utilise everything in the day. You might be retired, work from home, you've got electric hot water that you can obviously divert into your system, which, I mean, the Sigenergy comes with a hot water timer diverter as well. You've got a pool, you work from home, you've got your aircon on. You might not be able to generate a lot of power to fill a battery over and above what your needs are in the day. I'm scratching here to find, but that's sort of what you'd look at there. But then you could even leverage a retailer to fill up your battery and provide obviously a benefit. I guess the outlay for a battery is a little bit more than just solar only, being realistic. So maybe in that instance, but we just want to understand what each client's looking for. If they've got a set budget or a limited amount of roof space, maybe modest power usage that they're able to control through the day, solar only will work great. Still, that's the first benefit, is obviously utilisation of your power. But obviously the majority of us working in the day, out and about, come home from school, come home from work, aircon goes on, oven goes on, everything else is being used, and we're huge advocates for storage, and I think storage now really is, for us, 1 in 2 systems is with a battery.
Yeah.
And when we look at the numbers of your power consumption and what the return will be, some of the return figures are actually better with a battery, despite the higher outlay, than just solar only. But again, we just need to understand what your usage is like, do an energy assessment of what you have and what you use and when it's used, and then we can give you the right feedback for obviously what you want to achieve.
I think for me, I'll just very briefly touch on the hot water diverter that you mentioned there, which they're also bringing in, just so we make sure we do get all the features in here that we can think of. That means that basically you'll be able to intelligently use your solar panels on your roof. So if your battery's full, rather than selling it back to the grid for nothing,
Yep.
or next to nothing, you can divert that power into a hot water cylinder and heat your hot water with your solar panels, rather than it coming on after solar hours using battery power or potentially purchasing power from the grid. So it covers that basis as well.
Yeah, exactly right. I believe at the moment the timer that's built in is more of a time of use timer, so you just set the hours.
Yeah.
But eventually, I believe pretty soon, that'll actually be worked out to be a diverter for surplus energy. So if you have a 3.6 kilowatt element, once there's a surplus of 3.6 kilowatts of power that's not being consumed in the home or going to the battery, that's intelligently diverted to your hot water tank, and obviously once that's full, you've utilised the power perfectly from the system. So
just making sure you're not giving it to the grid for nothing.
Exactly right.
One of the things I asked you about downsides. The only thing that I would add to that is that it is newer, so it's a newer product. It's got a lot of features and potentially lots and lots of benefits. It isn't as well tested as something like a Tesla, BYD, or even Sungrow battery that we've been installing for a long time. So there is that element. Price is always a consideration for everybody. Sig is not overpriced. It's not a very expensive battery. It's also not the cheapest. So it's not going to be for everybody, but it does seem to have a lot of what anybody who's looking for a long-term solution and qualifies, so to speak, for a battery install in terms of having the capital to purchase or ability to finance a battery system. I think you have to consider it.
Yeah.
And that's why we've obviously, as you said earlier, taken our time to start offering it. We're quite comfortable with it now. But those are the only downsides I can see, just to try and be as honest and non-biased as we can with this information.
I think that's fair. I think obviously any battery on the market essentially is still moderately new, really. As I said, we started installing batteries in 2016. That's pretty much the first in Australia, really. Might have been a few just before that, but in terms of obviously this range of grid-type batteries that we're talking about. So yeah, again, a conversation that we'll have to say, look, it's been around for obviously a shorter time than a couple of others that are available on the market that we also supply. But yeah, if for me personally, if I could pick a battery and put bits and pieces together from each one, that's really what Sigenergy have done. And it's super exciting to have a product like that you can offer to people that have been waiting for a few years to say, when is the technology there? It's there. And the price is competitive. And yeah, I'm sure we'll be installing a lot of these over the coming years.
I think so. If you'd like to get in touch, we can do a tailored proposal for you. So one of the guys or girls here will talk to you about exactly how you're using energy, how a battery will work. We can do a proposal for you for free that will show you how much money you can save, how you'll use the battery, how much you'll sell back to the grid, all that type of stuff. So please do get in touch. Hopefully this information was useful and helpful, and keep an eye out, because we'll keep you up to date with new products as they come to our attention. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Dan.